welcome.
And for more on Tuesday's Facebook hearing, I want to bring in Dan Patterson. He's a senior writer for Tech Republic. Also here with me, Jennifer Greigel, assistant professor of communications at Syracuse University, and Roger Cheng, executive editor of CNET News. Thank you to all of you for being here. Let's just start with, how did he do? Dan, was this a good day for Zuckerberg?
This was a great day for Zuckerberg. In terms of his performance, he overperformed expectations. He was able to dodge, weave, and block a lot of the questions that were from the Luddite senators. And for the tech-savvy senators, he was able to spin and push away questions that would be very incisive without giving up too much. If I was on Zuckerberg's crisis PR team, I'd be high-fiving.
Jennifer, what was your takeaway? When you watched him, it seemed as if he got more comfortable. He was definitely respectful. He's not known for being a dynamic personality, but how do you think he did?
Sure. Well, you know, today was a very important day for the future of social media. Mark Zuckerberg, you know, is the CEO and majority shareholder of Facebook, also owns WhatsApp, Instagram, and Messenger. He showed up today, and I think he answered some tough questions, but I think there's a lot of follow-on that needs to be done, and I look forward to seeing how we might be able to write some regulations for a safer social media environment.
As we heard from Senator Lindsey Graham, as we were just discussing with Nancy Cortez, there's a lot of talk about, is Facebook a monopoly, and should there be regulations? Roger, what did you take away from what we heard on that topic?
Well, we definitely heard from Zuckerberg that he was open to regulation, but it seemed like it was more regulation on his terms. He used the term the right regulation. That's a key word there. When he was asked several times whether or not he would be supporting opt-in measures for his service. He said yes in principle. Again, he couched a lot of his answers, and he did very well. But he found a way to kind of get out of anytime he's backed in a corner. He kind of got out of the question fairly smartly.
Do you think we will see regulations come out of this?
It seems like there will be regulation. Big question is who's going to dictate what the regulations are going to look like. As we've seen today at the testimony with the Senate questions, a lot of these senators are ill-equipped to understand what Facebook does and even its core business model. So it's unclear whether or not they're going to be capable, whether or not they'll just take Zuckerberg's suggestions on what litigation should look like or regulation should look like.
That's a really interesting point. Dan, do you think these senators are the best people to be questioning him on this?
Well, they are the people's representatives, and when you have a platform of the scale of 2 billion people, there's a lot of Americans in that sample. They are not the most technologically savvy group, as we all know, but I don't know that it is a requirement that you be technologically savvy in order to understand the fundamental mechanics of Facebook or to ask that your privacy be respected. And I think that's really important. You shouldn't have to know code in order for your actions and activities to be siloed and private.
Jennifer, they did bring up the talk about overseas, the much tougher restrictions over there and about deleting content. What did you make of that, and do you think that's something that U.S. lawmakers are looking at?
Sure. I think that the platform is going to have to do a lot of product development to address GDPR in Europe, and so I think what could happen is we call harmonization. They're already going to be enhancing this platform over there so they can quickly port it over here. So I think we could see some alignment. And it's a great place to start. Europe has done a lot of work and really has been leading the way. And I think we also have to acknowledge that our politicians are more technologically advanced than a lot of the general populace. Why? Because you can't run a modern political campaign without social media. So they actually have a little bit more of a clue than most people. So I want to acknowledge that I think some of their questioning was pretty good today and strategic.
Well, one of the questions that really stood out to me, and Roger, feel free to jump in on this, Senator Dick Durbin came out asking about privacy, and he had that question that really kind of, you heard a silence in the room after he asked, would you be comfortable telling us which hotel you stayed in last night? What did you make of that exchange?
That was a perfect example of someone who doesn't necessarily have to be technically savvy, but asked a question and got the answer that got to the core theme. Anyone could understand the line of questioning, the trap that was basically set for Mark Zuckerberg. And yeah, it definitely shows that you definitely don't need to be technically savvy to understand this stuff, but the privacy issue is definitely front and center there.
There was a big pause from Mark Zuckerberg before he answered that. Oh, yeah. That was the first time that he really paused. Do you think he was taken off guard a little bit there?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you could sort of see him process the fact that he had got lured into this trap, and his face went from a grin because he was laughing about the initial question, and then it went completely gone. He was completely just stone-faced at that point.
I want to talk to you about Senator Roger Wicker when he was asking Zuckerberg about whether Facebook tracks users' browsing activity even after they've logged out of Facebook. This is an interesting exchange. Let's listen to that, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Senator, I want to make sure I get this accurate, so it would probably be better to have my team follow up.
So you
afterwards.
don't know?
I know that people use cookies on the internet, and that you can probably correlate activity between sessions. We do that for a number of reasons, including security and including measuring ads to make sure that the ad experiences are the most effective, which, of course, people can opt out of.
All right. That answer could concern a lot of users. Dan, explain exactly what he's talking about there.
So he is talking about the use of cookies, which are a tracking technology. Every website you go to, whether you're on your mobile device or your desktop, drops these little documents. What he's not doing, and the way he couched there, was some people, well, you can use them to correlate things. No, he's not being honest about the degree to which cookies track your behavior and your activity, and the degree to which there is a do not track list, the degree to which companies do not adhere to the do not track list. What he's trying to hedge and couch is absolutely, fundamentally, the business model of almost every internet company to sell ads. Cookies are tremendously important. And super cookies, a piece of technology that will respawn once you've deleted it from your computer, is something that is pernicious and sticks around on your machine.
Jennifer, Zuckerberg did admit that the company was slow to react to the Russian interference in the 2016 election, of apparent Russian interference there. You know, he said he's going to take steps to do better in the future. Going back to teaching at Syracuse University, are you going to go back and tell your students, hey, that's enough?
Oh my gosh, I've talked to my students so much, they already know all about this. So if anything, I think they're well informed. I think it's the rest of the population that needs to get up to speed.
But is it enough that he's going to make changes? Do you think that's enough for the country?
No, absolutely not. I think, again, self-regulation has gotten us where we are today. I think we need that to be backed up with regulatory oversight and some penalties if they violate privacy rights and things like that. We need something to hold them accountable, especially given that Mark Zuckerberg runs this company essentially the way he wants to, because he's the CEO and majority shareholder. So we need some accountability when it comes to Facebook.
Roger, how would you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I would totally agree that this is what they've done. They've introduced a number of different steps in terms of deleting your apps and being able to control your privacy. A lot of that's just a Band-Aid at this point in terms of being able to control your privacy settings and educating the user. No matter what they do, I think that the core problem here is folks don't really understand what they're giving up on Facebook. Zuckerberg kind of alluded to it. Most people probably aren't reading the terms of service when they click through, and they don't quite understand. And even with all this controversy, they don't quite understand what's going on, what they're giving up, and what they've lost, really. And so Facebook has to make this a lot clearer. And they've tried to do this year after year, but it's still an issue.
Roger, they might not have understood what they gave up, but do you think the majority of Facebook users care?
I mean, look, we saw a poll yesterday that said Facebook users do want to see more regulation. Obviously, they care. I don't think that they fully understand what they're losing, only that they've lost something.
Right. Before we go, I just want to hear from each of you. Was there something else you wanted to hear more from Zuckerberg?
I would like to hear more in depth about cross-site tracking and off-site tracking. I would really like to know if they track users who have deleted their account, not just deactivated the account, but deleted the account, and for how long they track those users.
Jennifer?
To be honest, I've heard enough from Mark Zuckerberg.
You're done.
I'd like to hear from our elected officials here, and I would like to see how they plan to move forward on this topic. We need safer social media, and we need it now. This isn't really something that we can delay on, so I look forward to seeing them get to work on these important issues.
Roger?
The issue of third-party apps. I mean, Zuckerberg talked a lot about how when you delete your account, your information gets wiped over after some time. But there wasn't that much detail on what happens to the data that's stored from those third-party apps. There was a question that was almost asked by one of the senators: does that data get clawed back when you delete your account? And Zuckerberg managed to kind of pivot away from it. He sort of asked a couple of follow-up questions and then kind of got the conversation completely changed around. So I wanted to see a little bit more on that data that's out there. Really the cause behind this whole Cambridge Analytica scandal, right, is this data was not in their control and ultimately led to someone else using it improperly.
Oh, we have Wednesday, so you never know, right?
There you go.
Roger Chen, Jennifer Greigel, and Dan Patterson, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.